What is this? What is this place? Why are you all here?
Worshiping.
You're here to worship? Are you here to worship God?
Yes.
The one and only God, Yahweh?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, now I know why I'm here. I have a story to tell you. Do you want to hear my story?
Yes.
Okay, here's the story. But I need to tell you ahead of time about some people that you're going to want to remember. So in the part of our story, we're going to be talking about a land from a very far away time. And in this land, the kingdom, my kingdom that I was part of, was the kingdom of Persia. And at the time we were talking about is a very large kingdom. It had taken many, many, many lands. So from your area, in your kingdom today, this is about how big we were. But in the story today, there's a few people you're going to need to know about. The first one that you're going to need to know about is the beautiful Queen Esther. Okay? We're going to come back to her in a little bit. She was married to my boss, and he was a wackadoodle. I heard that was a technical term you guys know? His name was Xerxes, or you might know him better as Ahasuerus. Now, there was another guy, his name was Mordecai, and he's got an important role that we're going to play in this in just a little bit. But the last guy in every story needs a villain, and boy, do we have a doozy to talk about today. His name is Haman. So we're going to keep all of those guys in mind as we talk about our story this morning. Well, where are my manners? My name is Harbona. Now, I am a chamberlain. Now, you might not know what that is. I'm kind of an executive secretary, and I handle a lot of the issues that don't involve the king's immediate attention. I take care of everything that he needs. I work with him on a daily basis. My bedroom chamber is right next to his. If anything goes wrong, I am there to help him take care of it. Now, I took this job at great risk to myself because Xerxes was a man who was very moody. He was given to whims and flights of feelings. But I was going to take this job. But I need to tell you a little bit more about Xerxes. In an attempt to expand his kingdom, he had put together an armada of 300 ships that he was going to sail in an attempt to take the land of Greece. Well, Xerxes lost very, very badly in this campaign, and he lost all 300 ships. Xerxes was so upset by this thing that he went down to the seashore and gave the sea 300 lashes. And there's another story that I don't like to talk about, but it's important for us to understand what Xerxes was like. Well, one day a man named Pythias came into the court. Pythias, a loyal servant of the king, offered to give the king $40 million of your money in an attempt to help him expand his kingdom. Well, Xerxes was so impressed by this magnanimous offer that he offered to do anything for the king. That the king offered to do anything for him. And Pythias says, no, I just want for the good of your kingdom. But, a few days later, Pythias came back. He says, hey, King Xerxes, you know that money I gave you? Maybe possibly you'd think that you could excuse my son from the battle, from your war. This made Xerxes so mad that he took Pythias' son and he cut him in two and spread his body out on the ground. And he marched his army through the parts of this man's son. So it's very important for us to understand that this is a bad dude. And you never know what he was going to do. But I'm going to be his executive secretary. I'm going to take the job. I am not going to rock the boat. And I'm going to keep my head right here where it belongs. Okay? You with me so far? Well, it all happened in what we call around here the Bay of Salamis fiasco. I told you that Xerxes was trying to take Greece. He lost very badly. He actually had to sneak home on a merchant ship so that he could get back home. And once he got home, it was all this moping around, and every single day it was like just moping around the castle, and he didn't have any desire to do anything. But you know, he talked a lot about Vashti. Now, Vashti was his former queen. And I thought it rather rude how he had dismissed her, and I really thought it rude why he had dismissed her. But nevertheless, if Vashti is who Xerxes is talking about, then maybe women is the answer. So I proposed an idea that we bring all the beautiful young girls from the kingdom into the palace. Now, Xerxes can spend time with them and he can get to know them. And throughout this process, he can pick a new queen. Well, Xerxes loved the idea. And we did it. We put all of these girls together, and they went through a series of beautifications, and they went through a time of readiness. And as they would one by one come and spend time with the king, it got to a point where there was just one that he was looking at. Her name was Esther. And oh my goodness, she was beautiful. She had beautiful, beautiful olive skin and dark, dark hair, and those eyes were just deep midnight. But you know, there was something about Esther that didn't seem quite right to me. She just didn't seem too Persian. But you know what? She made King happy. And that was all that mattered at this point. And they got married, and we all lived happily ever after. Oh, wait a minute, there's more to the story. It was really very, very good in the kingdom of Persia for about 5 years. Until one day, a man named Haman walked into court. Now, Haman was like the number 2 man in the kingdom. He was like you would call your head of the State Department, maybe. And he'd risen very quickly to this position of authority, a young man. But there was something about this guy I just did not trust. That I can't put my finger on it. There's not an example of what had happened up until this point, but there was just something that I just didn't like about it. But he comes into court one day, and he comes before the king that day, and he says, "Oh, King Xerxes, may you live forever. I have a proposal that I want to present before the court today." It says that there is a minority group of people in your kingdom that are very disruptive to our way of life. They do not follow our Persian customs. They have their own customs. They don't follow our Persian ways. They have their own ways. And it is to your disadvantage, King, to tolerate this minority group of disruptive people in your kingdom. And I feel so strongly about it that I wish to pay out of my own pocket for the annihilation of this group of people. I propose, King, that on December the 13th, we kill, destroy, and annihilate all Jews, men, women, children. Doesn't matter who they are all disruptive to what we are trying to do here, King. He finished with his proposal, and King Xerxes looked down at him and says, "Haman, you're in charge around here besides me. I'll trust you. Go ahead and do it. Here's my ring, but do it at state expense. Keep your own money." What in the world is Haman up to? The very first thing that crossed my mind, what in the world is this guy doing? Now, I heard about this from a friend of mine who tutors Haman's 2 sons. So, there was one man that had gotten involved with Haman's life that irritated him so much that he wanted to bring this proposal together. Now, around here we have what's called the Citizens Council. The Citizens Council is one member of every ethnic group, and they would come together and they would talk about their wants and their wishes, their needs. Those things would go to Haman, being the number 2 man, and then Haman would take those before the king. Well, you know, Haman being such a bigwig around here, when he would walk into the council meeting, everybody would stand up and bow down. All except one man. It was the Jewish representative. It was a man named Mordecai. I didn't understand. But, you know my policy. I'm going to not rock the boat. I'm going to stay out of the way. And I'm going to keep my head on my shoulders. It wasn't too long after that the decree was published. It said, on December 13th, you will destroy, kill, and annihilate all Jews, men, women, children. And I couldn't help but think to myself, these poor Jews, how could they deserve such a terrible punishment for something that they didn't even do? You know, I know a little bit about the Jewish beliefs, and I did at the time. And we Persians have always been tolerant of other people's religions, and allowing them to follow through with their religions. And these Jewish people believed that you only bow down to one person, and that was their God. You don't bow down to any man. That Haman is just so mean. Just so nasty. Because his personal feelings, he's going to take it out on an entire race of people. You know, it wasn't much longer than that day that I was walking along the second floor of the palace, and I noticed a man in the courtyard that was yelling and screaming and crying, and he was dirty from head to foot. It looked like he had dirt or maybe ashes all over him, and his clothes were ripped. And I was about ready to head down to talk to this man when I ran into one of the queen's attendants, a man by the name of Haytek. And so as I got there, he said, Harbona, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going down to see that man in the courtyard. He said, well, don't worry about it. I'm going to go down there and take care of it. The queen gave me these bags of clothes I'm supposed to take down to that man. I said, wow. I told you I like this woman. She's really nice. Well, okay, go ahead. Take care of that, Haytek, but get him away from the palace and stop making all that commotion. Later on that day, though, I ran in to Haytek again. And he had a copy of the decree in his hand. And he said, Harbona, you won't believe who that was out there. I said, who was it? He said, that was Mordecai, the Jewish representative. Oh, well, he's got a lot to cry about. And he gave me a copy of the decree to give to Queen Esther. I'm scratching my head and thinking, well, what's Queen Esther going to do with the Jews and this guy Mordecai, and why would he give her the decree? And I was just baffled by what was going on here. Well, he was gone from the palace, and I didn't have to worry about it anymore. Haytek went on his way, and I went on my way to do my job. But later on that evening, when we all gathered together and we were talking, Haytek came in, and he was white as a ghost. And I said, Haytek, what's wrong? He said, that Jewish guy, Mordecai, you know, that he's Esther's uncle. I thought to myself, I told you, she didn't look too Persian to me. Wow, she's a Jew. What's she going to do, Haytek? Oh, I don't know. But I went back and I told Mordecai, Queen Esther says she couldn't do anything because the king had not called her in months. And then he gave me another message to take back to the queen, saying that just being queen is probably not going to save her. And he said, give her this message. And then who knows that you've come to this royal position for such a time as this. Wow, kind of gave me chills. Esther, of all those women being chosen, And now, here we are. Hatek looked at me and says, Harbona, do you think we should get involved and say something? Oh, no way. I am not going to get in the middle of this thing. But I can tell you what, things are going to get interesting. Haman has a decree out to kill the Jews, not knowing that the queen is Jewish, and Xerxes is in the dark about the whole matter. Hang on to your seats, because things are going to get interesting. It didn't take much longer. The Queen Esther walked into court one day. And oh my goodness, she was beautiful. All of the noise that was going on and all the conversations that were going on, everything stopped. Xerxes, he almost dropped his scepter on the floor right there in the throne room. And he quickly beckoned her to come before him, and she did. And Xerxes looked out, and he says, "What can I do for you, my queen?" And it was very interesting because I know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm thinking she's going to tell what's going on. But you know what she did? It's the weirdest thing. She invited Xerxes and Haman to come to a banquet. I am really lost here. No idea what's going on. But Xerxes agrees, and Haman agrees. So Esther goes on her way, and she starts to prepare for this luncheon. When they all came together, everybody gathered. It was a great banquet that day. Everybody was gathered there. The food was amazing. Everybody was talking. At the end of the luncheon, though, Xerxes once again asked Esther, "What is it? I can see that something's bothering you. What can I do for you?" She says, "No, nothing, King, at this time, except maybe come back to another luncheon tomorrow. I'd like to prepare that for you and for Haman, and we'll come back again tomorrow." So they all agreed, went on their way. Now, there was two very interesting events that happened that night. Remember I told you I have a friend who tutors Haman's two sons, and he told me all about it later on that day. So, Haman literally floated home from the first lunch. I mean, can you imagine this prideful man, and he gets invited to a royal lunch, and not just one, but two. So he gets home and he's talking to his wife and his family and says, "But with all of this going on and everything that is good is going on in my life, that Jewish representative Mordecai still will not stand up and bow down to me. He can't wait till December the 13th. He's got to go now." Haman got together a bunch of his friends that night, and they prepared a dinner that they started talking about how they could get rid of Mordecai. They put together a plan, and that very night they built a gallows 50 feet tall, in which Haman was going to go to Xerxes the very next day and ask for Mordecai's head. The second thing that happened is just as interesting. I told you I sleep in a bedroom that is right next to Xerxes. And way early in the morning, he yells out to me, "Harbona, bring something to read to me. I can't sleep." And I said, "How about the memoirs of your reign?" That ought to put anybody to sleep. "Yes, fine. Go ahead, bring it." So I started reading along through the memoirs of the reign of King Xerxes. And I came across a story. There was a plot to kill the king. The Queen Esther had found out about it from the Jewish representative Mordecai. Mordecai told Esther, Esther told King Xerxes, and Xerxes' life was saved. Xerxes stopped me and says, "Harbona, was anything ever done for that man?" And I read and I looked further. No, it doesn't look like anything was ever done for that man. "Oh, we've got to fix that first thing tomorrow morning. You remind me. And once we get into court tomorrow morning, we're going to honor this man in some great way." I went back to my bedroom, and I'm thinking, here we go. Xerxes wants to hang him. Or Haman wants to hang him. Xerxes wants to honor. We didn't have long to wait the next morning because Xerxes comes crashing through the door. Advisors, advisors, where are my advisors? I looked up, I said, Haman's outside. He asked, hey, he wants to talk to you. I said, oh, bring him. He said, Haman comes in, he says, Haman, there is a man in my kingdom that I owe a lot to. I owe him a lot. And I want to honor him in some great way. You might have some ideas about this. How would we take and honor this prized person? Big old smile shows up on Haman's face. Who else would the king want to honor? I do have an idea, king. I would take him, I would put the royal robe and crown on the man. And I would put him on the king's own stallion. And have one of the leading officials from the kingdom lead him around the streets of the kingdom saying, this is the man the king wants to honor. Great, Haman. You're a leading official. You go over to the Citizens Council and get the Jewish representative, Mordecai, and you do all of that stuff for him. You should have seen the look on Haman's face. And he kind of sloped off. Looked like my kids when they're going to do their chores. And we got reports throughout the rest of the morning of Haman and Mordecai's escapades through the streets of Persia. And Haman was able to pull himself back together and make it back to the luncheon that Esther had prepared that day. And once again, as Esther does, everything was perfect. It was beautiful. The scene was set. The luncheon was prepared. And when they had finished, Xerxes looked into his queen's eyes, and he tenderly and compassionately asked, Esther, I know something has been bothering you for many days. What is wrong? What is it that I can do for you? What is it that I can give you? And you know that time when you're watching the play and the actors are going together and you know something's about ready to change and the music gets kind of loud and exciting? That's what it was, right there. I thought, she's going to say something. And she did. Esther turned to the king and said, yes, king, you can give me something. You can give me my life and the life of my people, for we are about to be killed, destroyed, and annihilated. Oh my goodness, you should have seen the look on Haman's face. Xerxes is outraged. Who would dare hurt the king or the queen or the queen's people? And Esther looked over and pointed. Haman. Haman? You mean that decree? Oh! Xerxes was so angry that he stormed out of the room. Haman gets down on his knees and he gets in front of Esther. He says, Esther, I never knew you were Jewish. He began to clutch at her and grab at her. And just at that right moment, Xerxes walks in the door and said, Haman, will you also molest the queen in my own palace? Cover his face. Now, what you might not know is when a Persian calls for someone's face to be covered, that's the death penalty. That's going to be the end of Haman. I thought to myself, I generally don't like to get in the way of these things, but I felt it pretty safe at this point, and I leaned into the king and I said, King, I need to tell you that I found out that Haman and his family and his friends built a gallows last night, and he intended to come and ask you for Mordecai's head. Xerxes gets this angry look on his face. He looked at me, he turned and he looked at Haman and the arms of the guard that were holding him. He said, hang Haman on it. And he did. That day. Oh my goodness. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. All of this stuff going on. But you know what? We still had a problem. Because here in Persia, when a decree is published, you cannot rescind it. But Xerxes had Mordecai come in, and they had a special meeting where they could talk about it. And between Xerxes and Haman, they came up with an idea that they were going to create a counter decree. Now, in the counter decree, on December the 13th, it says that the Jews can do whatever it takes to protect their own safety and protect their own lives. They could even bind themselves together to do violence against those that are the aggressors against them. Oh my goodness, when that decree came out, you should have seen the Jews dancing in the street that day. All I could think about was this unusual chain of events and everything that had happened. Esther, of all of those women, becomes queen, and she's not even Jewish. She's not even Persian. Mordecai saves the king's life, but no notice of it ever gets before the king. Xerxes has insomnia that night, not the night before or the night after. Oh my goodness. I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the Jews partying out of one side of the palace, and I'm looking at Haman's body hanging from the gallows on the other side of the palace, and I thought to myself, wow, these Jews, they sure are lucky. About that time, Mordecai came out from meeting with Xerxes, and I said, oh, Mordecai, I just got to tell you, I saw all this stuff going on, and I'm thinking, wow, you Jews sure are lucky. Mordecai looked at me and he said, Harbona, it is written in a book we call Psalms, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. The Lord shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. So when I came and I started this morning and I found out that you were worshipers of the great I Am, I knew that you needed to hear that story. And if you are worshipers of the great I Am today, then you know all about his son, Yeshua. And if you don't know about his son, I'm here to tell you today that you need to know about the son. Daryl started this morning with us in our Lord's Supper, song number 903. There is power in the blood. Verse 4 that we didn't look at. Would you do service for Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood. Power in the blood. Would you live daily his praises to sing? There is wonderful power in the blood. Praise God, we have a King that loves us and watches over us and protects us and has prepared a place so that when we get done here, we can go and be with him forever. Can we get an amen? Amen. Were the Jews lucky? The Jews were God's people. And brothers and sisters, It is not luck we need. It is that unseen hand of God's providence that is going to lead us through every single situation in this life. Do you need Him? If you're not following Jesus Christ, today is the day of salvation. If you're not walking with Jesus as your Lord and as your Savior, today is that day. We're going to sing a song. Lord, take control. My heart, my mind, my body, my soul. Have you given it all to Him? If not, look down deep inside and find out why, folks. Don't forget the book of Esther. Don't forget about the unbelievable, controlling hand of a God that loves you and mercifully cares for you. Let's all stand and sing.